Hey plant lovers, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and low-maintenance houseplants you can grow, Hoya. Also known as the wax plant, these beauties come in a ton of different varieties. And trust me, there's a Hoya for everyone. In this video, I'll be showing you 30 unique types of Hoya you can grow at home, from the classic Hoya Carnosa to some rare ones you might not have heard of. We'll talk care tips, where to find them, and which ones are perfect for beginners. Alright, let's start with a classic, the Hoya Carnosa. If you've been into houseplants for a while, you've probably seen this one around. It's kind of the OG of Hoyas, and super easy to care for, which is why it's such a favorite. Look at those glossy leaves! That waxy texture not only makes them look great, but also helps them hold moisture, which means you don't have to water it constantly. Perfect for anyone who forgets their plants every now and then. Guilty as charged. Another awesome thing about Hoya Carnosa: the blooms. When this baby flowers, you get these little star-shaped clusters that smell amazing, like a mix of honey and vanilla. But don't worry if it doesn't bloom right away. These guys like a little patience and bright, indirect light to show off. Alright, next up, we've got the Hoya Carnosa Compacta, or as most people call it, the Hindu rope plant. And man, look at this thing. It's like the regular Hoya Carnosa went to the gym and came out with these crazy, twisted vines. This one's a real conversation starter. Those curled, waxy leaves not only look super cool, but are also great at holding moisture, just like the regular Carnosa. Plus, they're super low maintenance. This is definitely a set-it-and-forget-it kind of plant. Now, here's the fun part. If you're lucky and patient, you might see some blooms pop out. They're just as gorgeous as the regular Carnosas, with that same sweet, honey-like scent. But even without the flowers, the foliage alone makes it worth having. Alright, plant number 3 is the Hoya Crimson Princess. Check this out. This one's like the fancy cousin of the regular Carnosa. It's got these gorgeous, variegated leaves with splashes of cream and pink in the middle, surrounded by green edges. If you're into plants that pop, this one's for you. Now, here's a fun fact. The princess has pink stems, which makes it easy to tell apart from its sibling, the Crimson Queen, where the white variegation is on the edges instead. It's like the plant version of a style battle. Alright. Let's talk about Hoya Carnosa Tricolor. This one's like a work of art in plant form. Check out these leaves, green on the edges, creamy white in the middle, and new growth comes in with these blushes of pink. It's like the plant just decided to show off. This is basically the Hoya Carnosa, but with a major glow-up. It's easy to care for, just like its relatives, and does best with bright, indirect light to keep those colors bold. Oh, and let the soil dry out between waterings. These guys don't like wet feet. Alright, plant number 5 is the Hoya Australis. This one's a total classic. Simple, reliable, and super versatile. Look at these leaves. They're thick, round, and glossy, and they give off this perfect tropical vibe. It's like bringing a little piece of the rainforest into your home. What's great about the Australis is that it's really forgiving. It can handle a bit more sun than some other Hoyas. Just don't fry it in direct afternoon light. And like all Hoyas, it's happiest when the soil dries out a bit between waterings. Easy peasy. Next up, we've got the Hoya Pubicalyx. This one's a real champ. It's super easy to grow and has these gorgeous leaves with little silver speckles, almost like someone splattered paint on them. This guy grows fast and loves to trail or climb, so give it a trellis or let it hang. It'll do its thing. Bright, indirect light is key, and like most Hoyas, let the soil dry out before watering again. Alright, let me introduce you to the Hoya Kentiana. This one's a bit different. It's got these sleek, narrow leaves that almost look like little green beans. Perfect for adding some variety to your collection. It's a trailing beauty that loves bright, indirect light and thrives when you let it dry out between waterings. Bonus points if you can get it to bloom. Those clusters of pink and maroon flowers are stunning. Okay, plant number 8 is the Hoya Kerrii, also known as the sweetheart plant, and for obvious reasons. Look at that perfect little heart-shaped leaf. This one's super popular around Valentine's Day, but it's a fun plant to have year-round. While some people just keep the single leaf as a cute decoration, it's even better when you grow the full plant. Alright, next up is the Hoya Obovata. Check out these leaves. Big, round, and super sturdy with little silver speckles. It's like nature's polka dot pattern. This one grows fast and loves to climb or trail, so give it some space to spread. Bright, indirect light is perfect, and let the soil dry out between waterings, just like most Hoyas. If you want a Hoya that's easy to grow and adds a bold, tropical vibe to your space, the Obovata is a must-have. Next, let's talk about the Hoya Mathilde. This one's got these beautiful thick leaves that are a mix of green and cream, super eye-catching. It's a fast grower, so it'll quickly fill out and look fuller with some good, bright, indirect light. Like all Hoyas, it's low maintenance. Just let it dry out between waterings, and you're good to go. Next up, we've got the Hoya Retusa. This one's definitely a standout. It's got these super thin, elongated leaves that almost look like blades of grass. Pretty cool, right? It's a slow grower, but don't let that fool you. This plant is low maintenance and easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light, and let it dry out between waterings. It's perfect if you want something unique and simple to add to your Hoya collection. Now let's talk about the Hoya Wayetii. Check out these leaves. They've got this cool, wavy texture that really makes it stand out from the rest. This one's a fast grower and pretty easy to take care of. It loves bright, indirect light and doesn't need too much attention. Just let the soil dry out before watering again. Alright, next up is the Hoya Curtisii. This one's super cute. Look at these tiny, round leaves with those little silver flecks. It's almost like nature decided to make a plant out of confetti. It's a slow grower, but totally worth the wait. It's low maintenance and doesn't need too much sun. Bright, indirect light is perfect. And like most Hoyas, just let the soil dry out before watering. Now, let's talk about the Hoya Latifolia. This one's a beauty with its long, leathery leaves that have this deep, rich green color. It's a low-maintenance plant that's pretty easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light and water it when the soil's dry. It's also a fast grower, so you'll see those vines filling out pretty quickly. Next up, we've got the Hoya Fitchii. This one's got these awesome, thick, dark green leaves with a bit of a velvety texture, kind of like a plush pillow for your eyes. It's a slow grower, but super easy to care for. Give it bright, indirect light and let the soil dry out between waterings. Nothing too complicated. Here's Hoya Shepherdii, another unique one with these narrow, almost leathery leaves. The texture on these guys is super interesting, and the way they trail just adds to the charm. It's an easy grower, loving bright, indirect light, and like most Hoyas, it prefers to dry out between waterings. Simple care, but looks amazing as it trails. Next up, we've got the Hoya Burtoniae. This one's got these cool, pointed leaves and can really impress when it blooms. The flowers are small, but they're like little stars, bright and beautiful. It's an easy grower. Just give it some bright, indirect light and water it when the soil's dry. It doesn't take much, but when it flowers, it's definitely worth the wait. Alright, here's a cool one. Hoya Linearis. Just look at these thin, stringy vines that hang down like a cascade. It's super unique and looks awesome hanging in a basket or from a shelf. It loves bright, indirect light and doesn't need much water. Let the soil dry out between feedings. This one's a little slow growing, but it's totally worth it once it gets going. Now, let's talk about the Hoya Finlaysonii. This one's got these big, thick leaves that are super glossy and really striking. It's like a classic Hoya, but with a bit more boldness to it. It's easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light, and like all Hoyas, let the soil dry out between waterings. It's a slow grower, but once it picks up speed, it's a beauty. If you want a Hoya that's simple yet eye-catching, the Finlaysonii's a great pick. Here's Hoya Rosita. This one's got these beautiful thick leaves that are dark green with a subtle variegated edge. It's a simple yet stunning plant. It's easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light and water it when the soil dries out. It's a slow grower, but once it gets going, it fills in nicely. If you're looking for a low-maintenance Hoya that adds a touch of elegance to your space, the Rosita is a great choice. Next, we've got Hoya Krohniana. Check out these little heart-shaped leaves with silver specks. So pretty, right? It's like nature's own version of a sparkle effect. It's super easy to care for, needing only bright, indirect light and the usual dry-out between waterings routine. It's a slow grower, but those silver leaves make it totally worth the wait. Now, let's talk about the Hoya Multiflora. This one's known for its tiny, star-shaped flowers that bloom in clusters. Super cute and fragrant. It's an easy grower, just needs bright, indirect light and regular watering. Let the soil dry out in between. Once it starts blooming, you'll definitely notice. Here's the Hoya Merrillii. This one's got these big, meaty leaves that are super thick and leathery. Definitely a standout in any collection. It's pretty easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light and water when the soil dries out. It's slow to grow, but once it does, you'll see those bold, beautiful leaves fill out. Here's Hoya Thomsonii. Look at these gorgeous, small, pointed leaves with silver speckles. It's like a little artwork on each one. It's pretty low maintenance. Just give it bright, indirect light and let the soil dry out before watering. It's slow to grow, but the silver markings make it worth the wait. Next up, we've got the Hoya Globulosa. This one's pretty cool with its round, slightly fuzzy leaves, almost like nature's little pillows. It's super easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light and let the soil dry out between waterings. It's a slow grower, but those cute, textured leaves make it totally worth it. If you're into smaller, unique Hoyas that have a soft, fuzzy touch, the Globulosa's a great choice. Here's the Hoya Lauterbachii. This one's got these long, narrow, slightly twisted leaves that really stand out. It's pretty low maintenance. Just give it bright, indirect light and let it dry out between waterings. It's not the fastest grower, but once it starts, it's a real beauty. If you're looking for a Hoya with a little more personality, the Lauterbachii's definitely worth considering. Next up, we've got Hoya Callistophylla. Check out these long, sleek leaves with those cool, pronounced veins. It's got a really nice textured look. It's pretty easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light and water it when the soil dries out. It's a bit slow growing, but once it takes off, it looks fantastic. If you want a Hoya that's elegant and low maintenance, the Callistophylla's a great pick. Here's Hoya Serpens. This one's got these long, trailing vines and small, narrow leaves that give it a really delicate look. It's pretty easy to care for. Bright, indirect light and watering when the soil dries out. It's a slow grower, but once it starts trailing, it really fills out nicely. If you're into Hoyas that are low maintenance and have a graceful, trailing vibe, the Serpens is a solid choice. Next up is Hoya Imbricata. This one's got these cool, overlapping leaves that almost look like tiles stacked together. It's definitely one of the more unique Hoyas. It's pretty easy to care for. Bright, indirect light, and let the soil dry out between waterings. It's a slow grower, but the texture and look of those leaves make it totally worth it. If you're looking for something different, the Imbricata's definitely one to consider. Last but not least, here's the Hoya Elliptica. It's got these thick, oval-shaped leaves that are super glossy and a bit leathery to the touch. It's easy to care for. Just give it bright, indirect light and let the soil dry out between waterings. It's a bit slow to start, but those glossy leaves really make it pop once it gets going. If you want a low-maintenance, eye-catching Hoya, the Elliptica is a great way to go. And that's a wrap on our list of 30 Hoyas you can grow at home. Whether you're a seasoned plant parent or just starting out, there's a Hoya for every space and skill level. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you've got a favorite Hoya or any care tips to share. Thanks for watching, and happy planting.